Hey, Sanger Unified. Today we are going to continue our online learning PD series based on the book, The Distance Learning Playbook. Your copy should have already been delivered. And just as a reminder, we are doing a virtual book study that covers the 9 modules. The first module is to take care of yourself, which we're infusing throughout. The second module is already on Sanger Learns, and it was called Online Learning 2.0. We did a series of modules 3, 4, and 5. Module 6, Engaging Tasks, had its own video. And then today we're going to kind of combine Module 7 and Module 9. And as we move into a more hybrid learning situation, we'll talk about Module 8 in the weeks to come. So for Module 1, kind of that taking care of yourself, just a quick gratitude check. So who was the last person who helped you? What did it feel like? Who helped? What was helpful about it? So you can take a moment and just kind of think through that. And we're going to move on now to Module 7. So planning instructional units for distance learning. Really, in the book, they talk through the planning of instructional units, but it's not so much pacing as it is the actual delivery of that. So when it comes to our delivery, we still have our guaranteed and viable instruction. It looks slightly different, obviously, but we're still focusing on that learning target, which is GVC connected. We're still wanting that learning target to connect to the different pieces of the lesson, be it the opening, the creating connections, concept instruction, formative assessment, and then having closure and reflection. It's just that our learning environment does look drastically different. So within your PLC, hopefully you've had a chance to talk through how that learning environment has changed, but you're still focused on the learning targets that are GVC connected. And again, we're focusing more on our enduring standards, getting to the need to know, but sometimes those worth being familiar with in our situation right now will not be emphasized/taught. We're focusing on those enduring standards. We still want to make sure that we're thinking through removing barriers using universal design for learning, and again, leaning on our PLC. In an earlier conversation, we talked through the power of using the PLC to make to kind of divide and conquer and share the load when it comes to making videos, but also making slides, sometimes delivering the instruction, and so on. So we want to reiterate that, but we talked about that in the second and third videos. Some of the different things when we, in this module, in Module 7, was just talking through that you don't throw away all of your best practices, but you can adapt them. So for example, academic discourse and all the strategies that we talked about in the last couple of years, they don't disappear. We just adapt them to our current situation. So a strategy like a stronger, clearer, if students are not being able to work in pairs because we can't make that many breakout rooms, or instead of just in pairs, they're working in 3s or 4s in different breakout rooms, how can we adapt those strategies? And this is one example, this kind of triangle or diamond paper, where they've taken notes themselves and then they've talked to 3 different people, even if it's not an actual conversation and it's more back and forth in a chat exchange or back and forth on a Google document or in some sort of situation. And then from there, developing their own independent strategy in the center in the diamond. And then this is a peer feedback strategy where they're telling the writer something that they liked, asking the writer a question, and then giving the writer a suggestion. So it's called the tag strategy, and that's also shared in the book. So how can we adapt our strategies and not look for brand new ones, but adapt ones that we already know work and just adapt it to the current situation? Another example of a partner talk rubric. So how might we facilitate this sort of conversation? How in partners or in groups we want to build on each other's thinking? How could we do that in a small group or using breakout rooms? And then don't forget other strategies like the text reconstruction, where you're gradually releasing students from either a read aloud or reading text independently, and then working on, in partners or group, reconstructing that text and comparing it to the original mentor text. And then even ideas like PV legs. We're doing a lot more, or a lot more is on our speaking now than it ever has been. That's the only time that they're getting to communicate with their peers um, in that classroom meeting environment. Not to say that they're not being able to provide feedback in written form through discussion boards or peer feedback on written responses or essays. But again, not forgetting the different strategies that we already have worked hard at. And moving on to Module 9, it's learning, distance or otherwise. It really is just about self reflection. So, stopping and taking a moment to think, how can what we individually and we as a PLC, how can what we've learned during this whole time enhance our quote unquote normal teaching practices? So, how can the different strategies that we've learned, how can the amazing tech things that you guys have all learned? You've been so flexible and so patient and so daring and courageous with all of the technology. How can we, when we go back to fully in person, whenever that might be, how can we still have that sort of courageous spirit when it comes to technology when we're back in person? So, some different things that we've learned both individually as a PLC, but also as a school site and education in general: the importance of addressing social and emotional needs of students and educators, the importance of providing timely feedback to fuel the momentum of the learning, creating lots of opportunities for social interaction, especially in this situation where they're not getting to meet in person. But even in person, there are some students, when we think back to social emotional learning, there are some students who do feel kind of that loneliness, even though they're in person. So, how can we intentionally create lots of opportunities for social interaction? And then prioritizing the skills and concepts that families are least likely, oop, I have an error there, just keep with it, least likely to be able to help with. So, yes, we want to focus on GVC enduring standards, but we also want to make sure that our synchronous and asynchronous time is planned where that asynchronous learning is things that students might be able to still get help from their families with. Whereas we're going to prioritize for our synchronous learning the concepts and skills that families are least likely to be able to help. And just as a reminder, this video, as well as all the other videos in this online PD series, are on Sanger Learns. If you click on Teachers and Staff, and then Online Learning PD series, here's all the different videos that we've housed. So the slides, as well as the screencast, and then the different YouTube series on the distance learning playbook, as well as just some pictures from around the district. All right, thank you very much.